Hey, Kevin here in Skylabs. Got another video for you. This one might be a little bit on the heavy side, but I think it's some stuff that needs to be said. There's kind of an ugly side to this hobby, and there's definitely some division and some hate out there. What I do want to say is how much I appreciate everybody being super respectful and really kind in the comment section. Every time I post up a video, I almost kind of cringe a little bit thinking that this is going to be the video where they let me have it. And you guys haven't done that yet. There've been a couple comments, but nothing major. And actually, I would assume there would have been a lot more, considering we've kind of touched on some subjects that are usually pretty hot topics. So thank you very much. I do appreciate that. This is not easy to do, especially for my personality type. I am definitely an introvert. I do not do well in public situations. So not something that comes easy or natural for me, getting in front of a camera and hitting record. It's very stressful. So appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. So I do think audio is maybe one of the most subjective topics out there. You know, it's a lot different than sports and games. You know, if you think of like chess or baseball or anything where there's a clear winner, you know, it's very black and white. This is better than this, X is better than Y, blah, 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 and down the line. With audio, and I think because a lot of people, you know, everybody's got a different idea of what sounds good. Everybody's ears are shaped differently, so they naturally hear things different than other people. And I do think audio is kind of like food in a way where, you know, you might have grown up with certain flavors, developing your palate from when you were, you know, an infant. And that changes things. I mean, I'm sure we've all had friends that, you know, you're like, ah, man, you got to try my mom's spaghetti or whatever, insert whatever food you want. And then they come over and they're like, it's not so good, and it's your favorite food. I mean, I'm only assuming it has to do with the fact that, you know, that's what you were brought up on. So it's the taste that you've developed. And audio is the same way, I think. I think there's a lot of elements to audio, but I do think it is definitely one of the most subjective topics out there, and people get really passionate about it. However, I think the way they handle it is different depending on where you're at. As in, one of the great things about working in the shop is that we get to see people have discussions, random strangers, about audio and stereo equipment in a really helpful, civilized way. Every Saturday, there's usually a group of people talking about records or speakers or receivers, and you'll see people give suggestions or give their advice on something without it being as a matter of fact. And this is something you don't see online. And mainly in the, you know, the Facebook groups and stuff like that. Those groups, they're so negative. A lot of times it's just a constant one-up. You know, everybody's trying to one-up each other. Everyone's trying to sound more intelligent than the other one, or everyone's trying to act like they know more than the other one. And it really just gets nowhere, and I have to stay away from those things because it just gets crazy, especially if you pull up a hot topic. You know, there's those topics that, you know, as soon as somebody posts it, I can sit there, you read me the topics, I go, that's going to get pulled in 5 minutes. And the EQs, speaker wire, or cables in general, tone controls, loudness button, those types of things. It doesn't, CD versus vinyl, any one of those. You post that up in a Facebook group and it's gonna last 5 minutes, and then the admins are gonna pull it because people just start raging. And they choose their sides, and it's insane. It's funny for a minute, and then it just gets old. So, you know, one of the other reasons why we don't ship our electronics is that reason, and that if I put all of our equipment up online, we would sell out the store. It would take a month, and then we wouldn't have any inventory. And then it wouldn't make sense to pay the bills for the shop. I would end up in a basement or in a warehouse just doing online sales. And I don't want to do online sales because of that reason. For some reason, you put people online and they lose a side of, I don't want to say humanity, but they kind of lose touch with being understanding of each other and allowing people to have a different opinion or to just be good people. And that's something that I really do enjoy about having a physical store, because I don't think I'd be in this business if I didn't, if it was just online sales. I would rather sell soap, something I don't care about, so that I can enjoy my audio when I was done dealing with all the crap from people that suck. So keeping things in person cuts down on the suck factor. It doesn't rule it out completely, but it really cuts it down a lot. And you can tell. And by no means am I saying that I am impervious to having biases or to thinking that I know what's better. Because I check myself all the time. It's a phobia of mine. I literally just asked my wife the other day, I said, watch this video and tell me if I'm acting like I know it all, because I learned so much every single day about this subject. But that's what makes this subject so interesting. In the on the flip side, sports can get boring. It's all data. And if there were clear winners in everything, we wouldn't be pursuing anything like we do with audio. We're all chasing the dragon here. We're all, people bring up diminishing returns a lot for a reason. We're spending a lot more to get small improvements, hoping to get closer to what we think is a perfect system, even though we all know deep down that doesn't exist. But it's the idea that maybe it's out there. If it was on a data sheet, there'd be nothing to pursue. So, it's definitely a catch-22. For me, the topic that I struggle with being open-minded about is definitely expensive speaker cable and interconnects. And I don't know if I just haven't experienced an A/B test, but I've heard really expensive cables. Unfortunately, it's always in a room that I don't know, on gear that I'm not familiar with. So I can't tell if it's the equipment, the room, or the cables. So I guess really, I don't know, maybe I just need to go out and buy a really expensive set of cables or something and do an A/B test, but I kind of got a feeling I'm not going to be able to hear it. I just need to check myself on that one and try and keep an open mind about it. There's one other thing I see online a lot in these discussions, and I call it the proximity effect, and I've been guilty of this too. That's why I know it exists, and that is, when you see two people kind of sparring back and forth, you'll have one person saying, well, my Pioneer SX 1250 destroys your Sansui 9090, and back and forth and back and forth. And I think sometimes, and what I refer to as the proximity effect is, nobody wants to admit they made a bad purchase, or most likely they've never sat down and A/B'd them. They're going off memory. Maybe they did own a 9090 at one point, but were you even in the same house? Were you listening to the same music or the same source? How do you know? If you're going off memory from 10 years ago, you can't do that. You can, sure, you can do anything you want, but it's not realistic. A lot of times, and what I've been guilty of in the past is kind of rooting for my last purchase, and that I don't want to admit that maybe I made a bad purchase. So after I sell the piece of equipment, I might say, oh man, I'm glad I got rid of that. That thing sounded terrible. When I first bought it, I was like, oh, this thing's great. This thing destroys that last thing I had. And eventually I kind of caught on to, well, maybe it's just something new. And And once again, unless you A/B them, unless you're in the same room. I've had people come in, they upgraded a cartridge, and they're like, man, you know, this cartridge just isn't as loud as my other one was. And I'm like, well, what'd you have? Well, I don't remember. Well, how long ago was it? Oh man, oh geez, it's been probably 20, 30 years. And I'm like, how? Okay, you know, is it even the same stereo? Are you in the same room? Are you using the same record? You know, how bad has your hearing deteriorated in the last 20 years? But once again, this is just the way some people think. They don't realize that there's all these other variables. They don't realize that these things have changed and they all have a huge effect on how something sounds. Going off memory to remember how something sounded 20 years ago is insane. That's just bonkers. Don't do that to yourself. You'll be chasing your tail forever trying to get a sound back that in your head was perfect. Bad idea. Yeah, I'm definitely thankful to have the in-store experience because it does give you hope. It gives me hope that humans can have conversations about a subjective subject without being a total D-bag, because it happens all the time. Don't get discouraged. Get out of those Facebook groups when they get negative, you know, unless you just want to eat popcorn and enjoy the show. But people take that stuff just way too seriously. It's just audio. It's nothing to get that worked up over. It really isn't. So anyway, once again, go check out the website. We're uploading submissions on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the HiFi Fanatic. I appreciate everybody sending in submissions. Your submission is going to get posted. Anyway, I appreciate you guys checking in. I absolutely do. I thank you very much. I thank you all for being so cool in the comments when I'm sure there have been things that I have said that have made you just go, you freaking dumbass. And you restrained yourself. And for that, I appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a really good week. It's starting to get a little chilly here. We're going into the winter season in Iowa. Bear cold. It's coming. Isn't it, Moo? Moo says yes, it's gonna get cold. He does not like the cold. So anyway, have a good one. Thanks.